It is Friday, everyone. I'm not going to sing the Rebecca Black song this week. I watched that back last week, and I'm like... But anyways, it is...
Is that the Friday, Everybody Loves Friday song?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It is a Friday, which that means it's time for 705 Sports, the full half-an-hour version, which means Dan joins me. Welcome back, Dan.
Welcome back. Okay. At this point in time, man.
You weren't here. You're not here on Wednesdays.
No, I'm not here on Wednesdays with you.
Which is why I'm welcoming you back.
I can't freaking clear enough song for this show sometimes. So no, I'm not here Wednesdays with you. God, that would be insane to try and get here for 15 minutes on a Wednesday. I'm just thinking of the rest of my schedule.
Oh, right? I know, but you know what? Let's get right into something else that was insane to some people, which was the Super Bowl refereeing. And that's our poll question. Do you feel the Super Bowl was refereed fairly?
No.
That was fast.
That was... Okay, so for 58 minutes, there could be holding, pass interference, face masks that blatantly did not get called. Hell, for the 2 plays before the 3rd and goal play, there was probably more pass interference than the 3rd and goal play. And I'm not going to say that a fix was in, because I don't think that's exactly where we're going with this, but it's better for the NFL that Los Angeles won and not Cincinnati.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, if they're going to come up on your screen now, there's a bunch of tweets been going on comparing what was a penalty and what wasn't a penalty. And it was my frustration with that whole thing is, and Dan, I think you'd agree with me, if they're not penalties the whole game, that's fine. If they are penalties on and off, that's an issue. Because I like to see it called evenly.
There's no solution for this until the NFL has a referees union that is and they're referees 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Right now, they're the only professional sports league where your refereeing is weekends only, part-time. Like, the NHL, all the referees are NHL referees for the whole season. Umpires, same way. NBA referees, same way. NFL referees, just show up on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, you don't think they have lives and influences outside of, and all referees do, but lives and like these things happen, you know. So,
no, 100% they do, but like this is what we were talking about here with them. So, 4th and 1, he's offside. Pass interference there. The Bengals touchdown, there was a face mask. That was another one. And then both tackles false start on a 3rd and goal. But then somehow the final play is apparently a penalty. And there's another one that's going to come up on your screen now from an actual tweet. And you're just saying, I'm going to say this and I don't care what anybody thinks. This was not pass interference against Logan Wilson on the goal line. This was a great play, and everyone automatically assumes a linebacker versus a wide receiver is an automatic mismatch. And you got to look, if this isn't called...
The assumption, though, is, and generally speaking, that assumption has some facts. Most wide receivers against linebackers, CFL, NFL, you name it, that's a mismatch. And that's a mismatch they're playing for.
Not so much in the red zone, though.
No, because you condense the defense.
Yeah, because there's not the same amount of room to, especially in the NFL, because the NFL red zone is so much smaller because, well, the end zone is so tiny.
Yeah.
That there is that advantage. And there's some vids that's going to come up on your screen as well that's like showing more of these plays in real time. But like what's confusing to me is, if this is a penalty all game, fine. I'm okay with these penalties being called, but then call them the whole game. I think both teams felt these weren't penalties by this point in the game, and both teams were playing more aggressively. So when all of a sudden they were penalties the last 2 minutes, I think the Bengals defense just felt dumbstruck, because they're like, well, this wasn't a penalty 10 minutes ago. And we have this problem in the NHL. We have this problem in baseball where the strike zone seems to change every 5 minutes.
Well, that's changing soon.
And, well, it is, which we'll have to get into another day. But, like, it's getting frustrating, especially if you are the Bengals. You worked very hard to get here. And mind you, I think the overall game was great. Like, the actual game was good. Halftime show was good. Everything. This was one of the better Super Bowls in recent memory. But to lose off inconsistent refereeing, and don't get me wrong, there's other things. At the end of the day, the Bengals still had a chance to come back and score, and they didn't. And you got to give the Rams defense credit for making stops. But I hate to see refereeing, as much as I hated to see a coin toss decide one game, I hate to see referees decide another.
But this is not the first or last time an NFL game has been decided by crappy refereeing.
Not even the third.
New Orleans! Anyways, we have to keep moving, my friend, to our wonderful hometown team who is trying really hard to stay in touch and beat Flint, which is helpful.
Which they did, and they did it without one of their best players, Ty Krejci, who I might be pronouncing that name wrong, I do apologize. He was suspended for 4 games. There was 3 more games to go on his suspension for a high hit. And as you can see, Dan, he is a difference maker for this Hounds team.
Can we take a minute, though? There seems to be a lot of illegal hits this year in the OHL.
Yeah, I think they're trying to crack down on high
illegal hits. Where David Branch is just bored. It just seemed, and I went back and actually did some looking the other day because I was like, where is this one coming from? They're not consistent. And it's almost as inconsistent as the NFL and the NHL when it comes to who gets what for penalties. And maybe to an extent what team they play for.
Well, exactly. And I will say the Hounds on their recent homestand, we have graphics going to come up on your screen for that, they managed without some of their star players pretty well. That loss against Sarnia, although they lost, they outplayed Sarnia straight up. The goaltender stole the game. The next win, some defensive miscues as the Greyhounds do, but overall a pretty strong game. And the game against Flint, they won a low-scoring shootout game. I think that is a more important win for the Greyhounds than people may realize. To win a low-scoring game
but that's getting ready. That's playoff hockey.
Minus the shootout, but yes.
Minus the shootout. That's playoff hockey. That's your hard-nosed, score when you can, but play tight defensively. And they did. I watched a bit of that, and they did seem to manage that.
Well, and you know what? They went back to the controlling the neutral zone structure. That's the structure that works for this team. And, well, remember, traps are technically, goes on about them, but they're using a trap system that can quickly turn into transition offense, which they're going to need to do over the next mini road trip, which even though the graphic's going to come up on your screen for that, and they got to battle London first. Now, London is not as good as they've been in other years, but they're certainly not a bad team.
And they're getting better.
But I've seen a lot of people on the Sioux Greyhounds fan pages say this, and I do agree, London is not as much of a top dog as they used to be.
They're not who we're worried about right now.
Beating Flint was, I think, huge. And then we can't also forget the second game, which is against Owen Sound, which although their record is much worse than the Greyhounds, Owen Sound is a team that will punish you. They have always played a very
Western-style hockey 101.
Yes, they are a very physical team. Where
they're North Bay, they're built like North Bay.
They are.
They're very hard-hitting, hard-nosed. May not be the best team on the block, but they're like the big bad. They're the Boston Bruins of the '80s. Yeah, but Owen Sound's always been that way. When they come to Guelph and play, when I was, they've always built their team a little bit more hard. A little harder than than maybe like a Greyhounds team is built on talent and speed.
Exactly. I mean, the Greyhounds do have a good job of mixing, though. Like, they still are a physical team.
Look like Toronto.
Which I am impressed with them this year. We've both been impressed with them, but our sponsors are impressed with us, clearly. Come on. So we're going to go to a commercial break, but when we come back, we have some news from the IHF, and we're going to talk about some things going on in the NHL, so don't go away.
Superior Adult Learning provides free one-on-one support to help you reach your goals. Improve your reading, writing, and math skills, become more independent, and increase your employability. Visit www.superioral.ca to get started now.
and I must take this moment to apologize for my coworker. It is the double IHF, not the IHF. And they brought in some really, really good news. We're going to get to see both the World Juniors in Alberta, but also we had this conversation earlier this year about how we could run a World Juniors for the men, but the under 18s for the women was like, yeah, no thank you. Well, now that's going to be in the States too. We have a wonderful graphic here that I don't even bother trying to do. Let's see the graphic. So the other part of this is everybody that was eligible to play in January, regardless of whether they would age out between January and August, are going to get to play in August. The worst part of that is all those stats, the wonderful four-goal game and everything else, gone.
Yeah, with Connor Bedard's 4-goal game and Owen Power's hat trick. Now, Hockey Canada could still decide to keep it in their books.
Yeah, it could just be a...
Because I don't really think we can ignore Connor Bedard and Owen Power's achievements.
No. And they were still played in a version of the tournament that, for reasons beyond the control of everybody else, were canceled. Whether we believe or not believe, it is what it is.
The protocols were in place. They did follow the protocols.
So, unfortunately, it fell flat. But yeah, those achievements for sure. And that whole... There'll be an asterisk beside it, of course, in the 2021A and 2022B tournament.
Yes.
But I think those stats need to be held in the record books for Hockey Canada. And I think maybe someone will ask Hockey Canada what they're going to do with.
You know, that's something I will reach out to them and see if I can get an answer on that. But I'm also really glad to see the women's U18 tournament is still a go. I want to do big ups to USA Hockey that stepped up and said, hey, we will run it. Because Sweden just said they flat out said they can't. They just don't have the resources right now.
Sweden flat out said they couldn't, not only once.
Twice.
But twice. They said, no, we can't do it.
Dos.
Well, that's not even, that's Spanish, man.
Close enough.
No, it's not. It is not anywhere close, and we'll do that after the break. But twice they said they couldn't, and twice USA Hockey said, pick us, and this time IHF said, yeah, sure.
And I mean, I want to give them credit, right? Because everyone was so happy when Hockey Canada stepped up to save the World Juniors. The U18 women's tournament, it might not make the same money from a business or a fiscal point, but it is so important for these women to get these development tournaments because they don't have all these minor leagues like the men's hockey does, which that's a whole other conversation, Dan, that one day you're not going to get into.
Look at women's hockey in the Olympics this year and look at men's hockey in the Olympics this year. The more competitive hockey...
was the women's.
Okay, so there's still Canada and US and the rest of the world. But the rest of the world is playing better than they were 12 years ago.
They are improving drastically.
Like, this is...
And tournaments like the U18s are
reasons why.
They're crucial. And I will say that, this is on script, I'm getting this quickly. That women's US-Canada gold medal final, wow.
Yeah.
What a game.
Absolutely.
And Puin, too, setting history for being the first men or women's player to ever score in 4 gold medal games.
Well, now Nurse and Nurse both have golds.
Yeah.
And I think there was a stat there that she is the first African Canadian black woman to win a gold hockey. We had PK Subban and Nurse and others on the men's side, but this is the first for a woman, and that says something too.
I think one day we don't have time to get to this day, but I'd love to really take a look closer because the women's game does some things better than the men's game, and people are going to get mad at me for saying that, but I honestly don't care. But let's move in to the Toronto Maple Leafs, something that I get mad about and I do care. But the Toronto Maple Leafs have been very, very busy over the past 48 hours. So we have a graphic that's going to come up on your screen, and it's just the recent movement. So Adam Brooks gets claimed on waivers. He's now back on waivers as they're trying to send him down to the AHL. Nick Ritchie got sent down to the AHL, and he is not happy about it. Liljegren got sent down to the AHL to make room for Brooks on the salary cap. And last but not least, Joseph Woll re-signs with the club to a 3-year deal, 2-way contract this year, next year and the year after, a 1-way deal. Yeah. And that's telling me something is changing within the goaltending.
Could we see Mrazek out the door by the trade deadline?
Well, I've read some people thinking Campbell should be the one out the door, and to that I say you're nuts.
Well, I'll cover that in a minute.
Okay, but like Mrazek, maybe. I think the way the contract is structured, I think we're going to see Mrazek stay this year. and then he's going to be traded in the offseason, hence why Woll has a 2-way contract this year and a 1-way contract next year. But I do think Toronto is preparing to make a move. I don't think you move all these players around to just go, I was bored, I didn't have any cards to shuffle, so I figure I'll just shuffle players. So I do think something is happening soon, and I do think it's going to be a defenseman.
I need to address Leafs Nation for a minute now.
Okay.
For the last week, we've been hearing Campbell this, Campbell that, Campbell this, Campbell that. Maybe Campbell isn't the one. It's amazing how our Leafs Nation just happens to turn on people when they have a stretch of 3 or 4 bad games. Unless it's named Matthews, and even then, they don't turn on that type of an individual. Or Marner, and to an extent, the other top 2 also. Tavares is having a horrible year, but we don't see anybody saying, well, we should deal with Tavares. Not that we can, he's got no move clause, but the point is, I went and did some digging today before we came in. I located some stats that are going to say Jake Campbell, one of the top 10 goalies in the league. He is, for goals by goal against average, he is 7th. Actually, he's, 7th in the league. Save percentage, he's 6th in the league. He is not the problem.
He also has 4 shutouts this year.
We need to learn how to play defense as a team. Last night, 48 shots. You do 48 shots in the playoffs, you're getting your butt handed to you.
And Campbell, even though the Leafs won 4-1, you could say Campbell stole that game.
He did, absolutely.
He played outstanding. And when we talk about bringing in team defense and defense, I think the biggest thing is to add one more solid defender on the back end, and the graphic's going to come up on your screen. It's going to be beautiful. Look at that. See, it's beautiful, even though Kyle Dubas always looks so confused. And these are some of the players that the Leafs are looking into. We have Mark Giordano, Josh Manson, Ben Sherratt, Luke Schenn, Zdeno Chara, and Jacob Chikrin. And
go say it, I'm going to say it. Go ahead.
Zdeno Chara, I think Luke Schenn, obviously, I've already written a full article about Luke Schenn, and I do think Luke Schenn would be a great fit. But we have some visits going to come up on your screen of Zdeno Chara. Zdeno Chara is an absolute beast. He is, I know he's not as fast as he used to be, but he is a fantastic penalty killer. He is big. He has won multiple Stanley Cups, multiple playoff runs. He will put the fear into his enemies, and make sure this clips go right to the end, because after this fight is one of the most iconic Zdeno Chara moves that happened against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm hoping Dan remembers, and if he doesn't, he'll see it soon. But Chara, picture Chara on your penalty kill, or picture Chara out with Muzzin in certain situations to help calm things down. He is another big defender. And so this is back from early 2000s, where Zdeno Chara literally ragdolls Brian McCabe. For anyone who doesn't remember, Brian McCabe is still 6'4", over 240
Can
pounds.
opener.
And he just...
That was for a can opener hit.
It was. And I mean, I think Zdeno Chara, and again, he is 850,000. So what does that mean? He's affordable.
Okay. What are you going to give up for him? What do you think they ask?
Probably low-end draft pick, 4th to 5th round.
Richie?
I don't think the Islanders would want Richie.
Does anybody want Richie?
Like,
that might be a question.
I think Richie is someone you move to clear up some cap space if you can. Well, mind you, and I'm saying the Leafs could get Chara or Schenn. I'm not saying don't consider any of these guys. Because if you move Richie, then all of a sudden, Ben Sherratt and Josh Manson, if the other teams are willing to take some salary, are affordable. Mind you, I don't think Anaheim's going to trade Josh Manson.
Who wants to work with Kyle? I think that's really what it's going to come down with. When it comes down to this time of the year, it's what's your rep on the street.
Yeah.
He makes sound deals. He doesn't make good deals. He doesn't make horrible deals, and he spends money like it's growing, and somebody else we know. But it's just, who's going to want to sit down and say, okay, we're okay with making the Leafs better at whatever the cost is? And because they are the Leafs, and because the market pressure is there, we're probably going to pay higher than, say, the Islanders going and getting somebody. Because, but they know the pressure's on the Leafs to perform this year. They know that their Ben Sherratt or their whoever could help that happen. So you're going to pay a bit higher price than if you were, say, Florida Panthers.
I still think if you're Toronto, the smaller move might be the better move. But obviously, we will get way more into trade deadline as it gets closer and closer. We're going to start going over just certain players who we think could be moved.
We'll also touch on March Madness.
We will, but I want to get into now the Calgary Flames. So the Calgary Flames are on a roll. They've won 8 straight now, and if you look, this stretch goes from January all the way to now. Like late January, mind you, but the Calgary Flames are playing outstanding hockey again. They're getting the goaltending they need. They just added Tyler Toffoli, which is going to create a lot more scoring for this unit. I really feel Calgary could make a legitimate run.
Leafs Nation's going to get mad when I say the last little bit here. Calgary is better than the Leafs.
Calgary's the best Canadian team
out
today.
there right now. Today.
Next
week we're going to be talking differently.
Yeah, but as of right now, I'd even say Calgary's better than Edmonton. Winnipeg's been really up and down. Toronto, as much as we've been winning, I don't like a lot of the games that we're winning. I don't like the way they're playing. So I do think Calgary is showing that the structure that they've built with Daryl Sutter, and whether you like Daryl Sutter or not, he builds a good structure, is working.
Could we decide that moving Marc-Andre Fleury to Ottawa would be not a bad choice?
I mean, I don't see him going to Ottawa just because of what's happening in Ottawa. Fleury says he wants to go to a cup contender, but the Mark Fleury trade watch is live and well. And we're going to take a look at his numbers. And he started the season rough, and then he started to play a lot better. And the teams that are interested in him are the Washington Capitals, Pittsburgh Penguins, which I'm surprised Pittsburgh seems to be in on him because the way Tristan Jarry's playing, and the Edmonton Oilers. Apparently he blocked a trade to Washington.
That doesn't surprise me.
He's already flat out came out and said he doesn't want to go to Vegas. So I think Marc-Andre Fleury could go to Edmonton. Picture Fleury in Edmonton. I think any team Fleury goes to becomes a cup contender.
If Pittsburgh wants to upgrade Tristan Jarry, another one of those goalies who's in the top 10 on both on goals against and save percentage, then why isn't Toronto just saying we're going to upgrade too in the market for him?
Well, I think the reason why a team like Pittsburgh is looking at a guy like Fleury is because Tristan Jarry last year in the playoffs was terrible. And I think that's in their back of their mind when they're having such a good year. If you have Fleury on the bench, if Jarry falls apart, Fleury's playoff numbers are outstanding.
They've always been outstanding.
He's one of the best goalies in this generation. He's in the same conversation as Price.
Yeah, I was going to say he's Big Save Dave. Well, he actually, big moments
he makes
is when he makes the save. He makes the odd gaff, which isn't surprising.
Well, that happens with everyone, but
that happens with everybody. Anyway, we need to see him out of Chicago.
Yeah, I would like to see Fleury. I don't know if you know this. In Fleury's entire career as a starter, he has never not missed the playoffs. So I'm hoping he goes somewhere where a team can make the playoffs. I do think Edmonton legitimately becomes a potential contender with Marc-Andre Fleury. Just because if you can only score, if McDavid and Draisaitl can only get 2 to 3 goals a game, with Marc-Andre Fleury, that's going to work.
Yeah.
With Mikko Koskinen, and I mean, I have no idea why they kept blaming Mikko Koskinen for everything. And Mike Smith is getting healthy again, which is great. But you just worry if Mike Smith gets injured and Mikko Koskinen's your starting goalie, I'm sorry, you're going out the first round. If you make the playoffs.
If you make the playoffs. It's that having a backup that matters.
Yes, it's a crucial thing to have a tandem going into the playoffs. But we got to get into our commercial break, so stay right there and don't go anywhere. We got some updates on the Canadian Football League, and then we're going to break down all your Canadian teams for this weekend, so come on right back.
École publique Éco des Rapides, a place where your child can learn, grow, and be happy. Discover why more and more families are choosing École publique Éco des Rapides for their child. Register your child January 17th to the 21st at epedr.cspgno.ca. Parce que je vois grand.
Shop local, dine local, listen local, love local. Small businesses in the Algoma area have been a huge part of our community. Now is the time to show our support for them, from local markets to retail stores, music venues, and restaurants. Small businesses make up the backbone of our community. So go on, embrace all they have to offer by shopping, dining, listening, and loving local. Visit ssmcoc.com to learn more or to join the chamber today.
So we're all over the place this week. We're going back to talk about stuff that happens on the green before we talk about stuff that happens on the white again. And I have to make an admission. Since this segment is about who is the most team improved so far in the CFL, I have to say it might be Toronto. You've picked up Brendan Banks. You picked up Andrew Harris. Okay, so you haven't fixed some of your O-line issues, and this gives you a deep threat that you haven't had. It gives a legitimate target to hit with.
McLeod Buffalo Thompson can actually
Thank you.
have a receiver to throw to.
He has a prime receiver. We saw what happened in the NFL with one quarterback, one prime receiver. Banks could be that person. Mm-hmm. And then if you're playing defend against Banks, you're going to open up, even with a crappy O-line, you're going to open up some spots for Harris to run. It's defense needs a little work, but for improved as of this moment, yeah.
Yeah, Toronto has made a lot of improvements, and this is Pinball Clemens at work. I think he's just such a likable guy that both Brandon Banks and Andrew Harris said Pinball Clemens convinced them to come here. Well, he was the main driving point that he's trying to build a championship team.
And Brendan Banks came out and said nothing against Hamilton. Mm-hmm. He wants to retire a Tie-Cat. Mm-hmm. So whether that's a one-day contract, I'm out of here, as a Tie-Cat or whatever it is, or he comes back.
If they take him back after he goes to Toronto, because, I mean, that's a pretty...
We have a bit of an issue with people that go to Toronto and then not bringing them back to Hamilton. We kind of a history for not doing that. But he was such a good part to that team for the last few years. I think there's an option there to come back.
And then I'm going a little bit of a surprise here on my pick for the bet. I thought about Toronto. I really did, but my pick is the Ottawa Red Blacks.
Yeah, the minute I said Toronto, you were like, I'll let him say it.
So actually, with this Ottawa team, though, the biggest struggle they had, and mind you, they did lose Devontae Dedmon to the NFL, but that doesn't mean he won't be back at some point for the season. He's already expressed that if things don't work out in the NFL, he wants to come back to Ottawa. So the biggest problem Ottawa had is they'd get these great field position plays, and then would they get a touchdown? No. They kicked field goals. Now they added Masoli and Adams. You add a all-star quarterback with a really strong target wide receiver, and you'll still have Davis and Harris to kind of round out a good receiving core. All of a sudden, Ottawa's not that bad. Their defense was pretty solid last year. There was a lot of
and the Holy O-line's going to get a little bit of help because Mazzoli can run away from it.
Exactly. Now you have two scrambling quarterbacks, too, because I think Evans will be perfect for the short game that you can throw a trick play in every now and then and bomb a 30-yard pass. Because actually, I don't think Caleb Evans is that bad.
No,
I think he needs mentorship, and I think
there you're going to get that from Mazzoli.
Mazzoli's been through it all. He's been through the struggles. I think he's a perfect fit.
It's Harris and Montreal all over again. Mm-hmm. There's that veteran quarterback to bring in the next generation of CFL quarterbacks we're going to see. Vernon's not good enough for the NFL. He's not leaving. But he could be good enough as another Mazzoli type player with that.
With the Montreal Alouettes.
With the Alouettes and the mentorship.
And the
thought's not to throw the ball into stupid situations.
And that's where I think Ottawa has really improved. I think they have that quarterback now. They already had a pretty decent defense. You're right, their O-line is not the best, but Masoli is a guy that can work with a iffy O-line. And I think Ottawa's a playoff team.
And I could agree with you there, but who do they bump out of that East then if they're a playoff? Who is the team that doesn't
cross? Remember, East can cross over to the West. Doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that often.
Edmonton, I don't think improved a whole lot.
That's because nobody wants to go play there. But anyway.
No, it's a very bad culture. But what Edmonton might be able to improve is the draft.
I was about to head there through the combine dates, my friend. Yes. I'll save you the trouble. The 2022 global combine dates have been announced. We're doing February 19th, which is like tomorrow, in Brazil. 26th in Norway. 5th in Finland, 5th in Britain, and 6th in Japan. I don't know how you're going to get people in Britain and Finland at the same time. They're not like real close, but anyway. And that's a hell of a trip for the scouts to have to go to Japan from Britain. They're going to be hungover or jet-lagged or everything else, one of the three. Then they come back to Canada. They're doing the 10th in Ontario, the 11th in the Eastern, and this 18th out west. That's a little bit more doable. It's home, and the final invite's in Toronto. Well,
and you know what?
Shocking.
what's smart with this is I think the CFL is trying to target more international players who are kind of in that bubble where maybe they're not good enough to get into the NFL. And I think it's okay for the CFL to admit our talent isn't up to snub with the NFL. I don't think that's a bad thing to say. We are still a competitive league.
Do you become a pipeline if you go to these places like Brazil, Norway, Finland, Britain, Japan, and you find that star in the rough out there who comes to the CFL, lights it up for a season or two, and then, well, Miami or somebody says, well, how the hell do we miss them?
And you know what?
And
maybe this grows the Canadian game internationally. Maybe if there are some of these players from these other countries playing, do their families start to tune in?
I think
it grows the Canadian stock.
I also think if you're going to grow the Canadian stock, and CFL people are going to hate this, the amount of Canadians on a team
it's got to
maybe needs to come down just a touch. Not a lot. One or two players could be international versus Canadian. And well, it's not Canadian. Yes, it's still Canadian.
It's still Canadian. I think that makes more sense.
It's one of the better adjustments you could make to make the talent a little better.
Keep 3 downs.
Yes.
Mike, come to me. Keep 3 downs.
Although 4 downs has
No.
But there could be.
No.
There's other ways we could do 4.
3 down football.
What about shortening the field? Making it a little smaller.
No. We need the big field, the bigger ball, and 3 downs. The physical game is not the problem. I think it's the marketing that's the problem. And I do agree with you about the ratio and possibly some of the esports issues, which I'm going to have an interview on that pretty soon, just as a little
teaser. Esports, and the place that doesn't need any practice in esports is the NHL. They've got it figured out.
I mean, EA's game is terrible. We'll get into that another day.
Other than who makes the game, they have esports figured out. They have tournaments in EA for this, and CFL could go anyway. That's a whole different.
That's a whole other day. But let's get into our preview. I swear, Dan and I could do a 4-hour show some days, and this is one of those weeks. But let's get into the NHL preview. We're going to start with the Oilers versus the Jets, and I think the biggest thing for Winnipeg is find consistency. Their games they completely dominate, and then there's games they look like they don't even belong in the American Hockey League. Like, it's the inconsistency, and Edmonton, the new coach, has seemed to light a fire. They haven't lost yet. They outscored their opponent, I believe it was 16 to either 6 or 8.
Yeah.
So, like, Edmonton is starting to get on a roll.
And their announcers last night were like, hey, this is the team we thought they could be. Well, yeah, you have a new coach who's changed their culture. You signed a player who I still won't say the name of, but has changed some of the culture. And there just seems to be a mindset shift. And maybe that's what was needed.
I do agree with you, and I think maybe they took some notes from the Boston Bruins about trying to win tighter games, as much as I don't like Boston. And this is another game going on Saturday at 7 o'clock, which is the Ottawa Senators versus the Boston Bruins. But Boston plays a very, very hard and physical game, which is something that I think Edmonton is starting to do, and they're going to need to do that against Ottawa and next man up still without Marchand. Do you think Ottawa has a chance in this one, though?
I want to say yes, because they're out without Marchand, but Ottawa has to bring their A game. They have to do a little bit like Winnipeg and start playing consistently. I don't care if that's consistently good or consistently bad. Just start playing consistently so that you can figure out where you're going with this team.
I agree with you there, because, I think if they can start doing that, I think, how Anaheim, you were saying off camera how Anaheim has such a good power play, and they've really improved, and It seems like it came out of nowhere. I think Ottawa is going to be like that.
Could be that team, yeah,
I think
absolutely.
It'd give them a year or two, and all of a sudden, if they could just get consistent goaltending and stay healthy for a year, and mind you, COVID's been
This is why I say Fleury could go to Ottawa, and Fleury in Ottawa would make a difference this year.
Oh, it would. I don't see it happening.
No, I don't see it happening either, but it would make a difference.
But a team that's been playing different when we talk about consistency and everything? The Toronto Maple Leafs. The Leafs have been, again, even though it's not on the board, consistency. I think every team consistency of late is big in Canada. But Toronto, to beat St. Louis, as much as I'm not the biggest Marner fan. Marner has been playing some phenomenal hockey lately, and so is Matthews. You need to get the puck to Matthews and Marner, and Tavares and Nylander need to find their game again. Now, mind you, they looked better against Pittsburgh. but it's still, they're not
They look
playing as
better
well
than
as
Pittsburgh. Yes, they did look better, but they're not, combined 15 million better.
Is it time to maybe try switching Mikheyev and Kerfoot around?
Is it time to think about trading Nylander? I know.
That's another conversation, another argument. But now let's get into the Flames versus the
Kraken.
I always want to call them the Karens. I still think that would have been the name.
Yeah,
Guys, maybe their manager!
the Washington Karens.
Yeah. But Calgary, what's been working for them is rolling 4 lines has been so important, and that's part of Daryl Sutter's system, which is why I think Tyler Toffoli, that's a bit of a tongue twister, was
Tyler
such
Toffoli?
an important move.
I could say lots of Tyler Toffoli. So it's not some of the other names are like whatever. But yeah,
And
they
then
need to be consistent.
And goaltending's been huge for them with Markstrom. For Seattle, they need to just, I think this next stretch of the season, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they need to find their identity as a team. Are they skill? Are they speed? Are they size? Is goaltending going to be their identity if Grubauer can play like he used to in Colorado? They need to figure it out.
They need to understand that they're a Western Conference team, and size should be the answer.
Yes.
Or you have to go completely like Pittsburgh and become the speed team of the West.
Yes.
And there's a couple other teams, Colorado being another one, not so gritty, more speed and talent, that works in the Western Conference.
But you know a team that also uses speed? The Anaheim Ducks. I
We're
always
not
want to
talking
call
the
them the
Ducks.
Mighty Ducks. I always want to call them that.
Ever since the freaking movie 20-some odd years ago, everyone wants to call them the Anaheim Mighty
But
Ducks.
the Ducks-
I've yet to see them use the Flying V, though.
The Ducks, with their young talent, is going to be very hard for Vancouver to handle. The only thing is if Demko might be able to steal this one, as he does. Demko is proving to be one of the best goalies in the NHL. I think Vancouver is not regretting letting Markstrom walk.
Could he be on the move?
I don't see them moving him because I think Vancouver is another team. I don't think they're that far away from having a good team. I think a lot of the pieces are there.
Do they make the playoffs?
No. They don't make the playoffs this year, and I think they lose tonight. I think they lose Saturday night against Anaheim.
And here's my only thing on Vancouver that I'm going to say. They had that bounce when they got Boudreau and brought him in as 10 games in a row they won. I'm wondering if you're going to see the same sort of issue in Edmonton where you have bounce because you got a new coach and then all of a sudden that fun is gone, and happened a bit in Toronto too when they first got Kyle.
It did, and I do want to quickly say, as much as not on the script, we got to get going. But Martin St. Louis won his first game as a head coach with the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal won a game. Like, I think that deserves party poppers. That deserves throwing everything around. But
that deserves somebody going to check their temperature. I thought we were tanking.
But we gotta go. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, we are the Sioux's only sports show where we really break everything down the way we do. Remember, we also have First Local, which is the Sioux's only live news show, plus all our other local events going on TV, video on demand service. It's there. You know what to do. But I see Dan's ready to throw them papers.
I got apparently things to do.
Can you throw you don't want to throw your phone?
I do want to throw the phone, but we're not going to.
And we will see you next week. Dabbing out.